The Roman soldier, clad in gleaming armor under a relentless sun, his boots pounding endlessly through blistering sands or frozen tundras, sweat stinging his eyes as he hauls a crushing 40-kilo pack over 30 kilometers of unforgiving terrain. Imagine the sheer willpower. After a day that would break most men, these warriors dig deep into the earth with bare hands and simple tools, erecting fortified camps that stand like iron bastions against savage tribes howling in the night. But what shocking secret fueled this indestructible might? What hidden power allowed them to conquer half the known world, forging an empire that echoed through 1,000 years? You won't believe it wasn't grand banquets fit for emperors or exotic delicacies from distant lands. No, it was a brutally efficient, no-nonsense diet, raw, pragmatic, and ingeniously simple, that transformed ordinary men into unstoppable machines of war. Picture this. No modern fridges, no airdrop supplies, no endless convoys of trucks. Just Roman discipline and cunning, feeding tens of thousands on the move through deserts, mountains, and enemy territories. This was the unsung weapon of Rome's legions, their food and logistics system, as sharp and lethal as the gladius sword slicing through foes or the pilum spear piercing the air. We're plunging headfirst into the brutal reality of how Roman soldiers ate on the march, a tale of survival that reveals the eternal legacy of Roman ingenuity, from vinegar drinks that'd twist your face in disgust to rock-hard biscuits tougher than weathered leather, and the masterful logistics that kept an entire empire nourished amid chaos. Why did humble grain dominate their world like a silent general? What mysterious sauce could elevate a bland mush into a morale-boosting feast that bonded brothers in arms? And how did they cling to life when supply lines snapped, forcing them to devour the unimaginable? Hold on tight. These revelations unlock the major secrets behind the greatest army in history. Are you prepared to uncover how Rome's pragmatic genius turned mere sustenance into the fuel of conquest? Let's march into the heart of it, where mud, blood, and unbreakable resolve meet the cauldron steam. At the heart of every Roman legionary's unyielding strength lay something deceptively humble, almost mundane: grain. Not succulent steaks from prized cattle or vibrant fruits plucked from lush orchards, but wheat and barley. The high-octane carbohydrate fuel powering these human war engines across vast empires. Each soldier received a meticulously measured daily ration of about 850 grams, roughly 3 Roman pounds, delivering around 3,000 calories to combat the grueling burn of up to 6,000 during active campaigns. Why grain, you ask? Its ingenious simplicity was unmatched, incredibly caloric and nutritious, providing slow-burning energy for endless marches through scorching heat or biting cold, and the back-breaking labor of digging ditches or raising camps under starlit skies. Cheap to produce, it flourished in vast quantities across the empire's fertile provinces: Egypt, North Africa, and Sicily serving as colossal breadbaskets, their golden fields dedicated to feeding Rome's legions. Grain wasn't bought with coin, but collected as tax in kind, a clever system that streamlined resource gathering without the hassle of currency exchanges. And from a logistical standpoint, pure genius. It's stored indefinitely in dry form within specially built granaries called horea, elevated floors and ventilation warding off moisture and vermin for months, even years. Transported in sturdy sacks on wagons or ships, no other food combined such caloric density, affordability, and durability. The primary type was hard wheat like triticum durum, ideal for hearty porridge or dense bread, though in harsh regions like northern Britain where wheat faltered, barley stepped in. But barley? To Romans, it was lowly fodder for livestock, a mark of disgrace. Picture the humiliation. After a rebellion or cowardly retreat, a unit might face decimation, 1 in 10 executed in a lottery of terror, while survivors were banished beyond camp walls, forced to subsist on barley rations, an indelible scar on their honor. Historical accounts from Polybius, the Greek historian who marveled at Roman efficiency in his histories, describe how this annona militaris system was a bureaucratic marvel, one of the state's pillars ensuring no legion ever faltered from hunger. Grinding that daily portion became a ritual as sacred as sharpening a sword, each legionary lugging a heavy hand mill, the mola manuaria, 2 grinding stones weighing several kilograms, part of his compulsory baggage. Evening after exhausting march, he'd hunker down by flickering firelight, the monotonous grind echoing through camp, turning raw kernels into life-sustaining flour. This wasn't mere sustenance. It was the strategic foundation of Rome's power, binding provinces to the eagle standard and enabling conquests that reshaped the world. Without grain's unyielding reliability, no roads snaked across continents, no aqueducts defied gravity, no battles turned the tide of history. This staple embodied Roman discipline, efficient, unyielding, essential to their eternal legacy. But raw grain alone wouldn't suffice. How did these warriors transform it into meals amid the march's relentless pace? You won't believe the clever, adaptable hacks that kept them nourished through the empire's bloodiest trials. Raw grain clutched in calloused hands, the legionary faced the daily alchemy of turning it into battlefield sustenance, a task no less daunting than facing a barbarian horde. No luxury of pre-cooked loaves or gourmet spreads. Everything demanded ingenuity on the move. The cornerstone dish? Puls, a thick, steaming porridge boiled from coarsely ground spelt or wheat, akin to the ancestor of Italian polenta and the national fare of archaic Rome.
That's good stuff.
Imagine
right
the scene. After a punishing day trudging through mud-churned paths, bloodied from skirmishes, a contubernium, 8 battle-hardened comrades sharing a tent, gathers around a crackling fire. They boil the grains in water with a pinch of salt until a hearty, viscous mass forms, a basic canvas begging for enhancements. Crumble in hard cheese like quesos. Toss in pungent garlic or onions scavenged from the roadside. Wild herbs foraged in haste, or precious bits of salted meat to elevate it from bland survival to a warm, soul-soothing supper. Easily digestible and energy-dense, Puls wrapped around your ribs like a comforting embrace, warding off the night's chill and filling the void left by endless exertion, perfect for replenishing after hours of hauling gear that weighed as much as a small child. But for lightning-fast marches when fires were a luxury and time an enemy? Enter Bucellatum, the soldier's biscuit. Twice-baked wonders hard as ancient stones engineered for immortality. Ground into flour, kneaded with mere water and salt, shaped into flatbreads or rings, then baked low and slow to banish every drop of moisture. The Latin biscuitus, meaning twice-baked, birthed our modern biscuit, but these were no delicate treats. They endured months without mold, a forerunner to all army hardtack and ship's biscuits in history. Chew them dry, risk shattering teeth on their unyielding crunch. Instead, soak in water, wine, Posca, or broth to soften into a makeshift porridge. A few tucked in a marching satchel, providing an invincible energy reserve when flames were forbidden. Archaeological finds from forts like Vindolanda in Britain reveal these rations' ubiquity, mute testaments to countless campaigns. Of course, in stationary camps or fortresses, where the rhythm of war slowed, true bread became a coveted luxury, panis militaris, coarser and denser than today's loaves, laced with bran and risen on sourdough without yeast. Every major camp boasted bakeries with massive stone ovens, the aroma of baking wafting through the air like a balm for weary spirits. Sometimes a contubernium might fashion a small clay oven, baking fresh, warm loaves that symbolized stability amid chaos. Julius Caesar, in his commentaries on the Gallic War, notes how such simple comforts boosted morale during sieges like Alesia, where his legions encircled Vercingetorix's Gauls, their own supplies stretched thin yet sustained by this versatile grain. This flexibility was Roman genius incarnate. Puls for immediate warmth and camaraderie around the fire, Bucellatum for unyielding mobility on forced marches, and proper bread for the rare respites of organized service. It humanized the brutality, soldiers forging bonds over shared grinding stones and simmering cauldrons, turning drudgery into brotherhood. Yet as the flames danced and stomachs settled, another challenge loomed. Quenching thirst in lands riddled with tainted waters that could fell an army faster than swords. The answer? A shocking elixir that blended torment with salvation. A pragmatic potion born of necessity. Thirsty under the scorching Mediterranean sun, muscles aching from the ceaseless rhythm of the march, Roman soldiers reached not for crystal-clear streams, but for a brew that might make modern palates recoil in horror. Posca. Forget pure water or fine vintages. This mix of vinegar and water sounded like self-inflicted torture, yet proved pure, life-saving genius. Crafted from sour wine known as acetum, diluted in precise proportions and occasionally flavored with honey or aromatic herbs like coriander or mint, Posca was the official staple drink, carried in leather flasks called lagunculae slung from every legionary's belt. Why embrace this brutal concoction? Safety reigned supreme. Campaign waters from rivers and lakes teemed with invisible perils. contaminated by upstream battles or settlements, breeding dysentery and intestinal plagues that could decimate entire legions swifter than any enemy charge. The acetic acid in Posca acted as a mild antiseptic, slaughtering harmful bacteria on contact and rendering dubious sources drinkable. A simple, effective sanitation method in an era before purification tablets. But its virtues ran deeper. As a thirst quencher, it outshone plain water, its tart tang stimulating salivation and offering subjective refreshment in blistering heat. Modern science echoes this ancient wisdom. Studies show low-acid, electrolyte-laced drinks enhance water absorption, making Posca a primitive isotonic sports drink, akin to Gatorade, restoring salt balance after sweat-soaked hours under heavy armor. It even supplied calories and vital nutrients, potassium and traces of vitamin C to stave off scurvy, that insidious scourge that weakened Hannibal's forces during his Italian campaigns, as Polybius recounts. Shocking as it seems, Posca was no punishment but a compassionate lifeline. The Gospels describe a Roman soldier offering it to the crucified Christ on a sponge, not as mockery but a genuine gesture of mercy, sharing the common trooper's relief for unbearable thirst. Issued as routinely as grain, its logistics were streamlined. Concentrated vinegar hauled in barrels, diluted on site with local water. In northern outposts like Britain or Germania, where vines refused to thrive, soldiers adapted to local cerveza, beer despised by purist Romans as barbaric swill yet tolerated for survival, as evidenced by Vindolanda tablets detailing supply lists. Vegetius, in his Epitome Rei Militaris, praises such pragmatic adaptations, underscoring how Posca embodied Rome's ingenuity, repurposing waste wine into a weapon against dehydration and disease, keeping legions hydrated and hale across diverse climes. This sour savior highlighted the empire's compassionate undercurrent, humanizing warriors who faced death daily. But while grain and Posca sustained the core, protein was the oil that kept the machine grinding. Enter the meatier side of the legionary plate, where survival turned savory. Grain ignited the engine of endurance, pulsing through veins like liquid discipline, but meat was the vital lubricant that kept the Roman war machine oiled and operational, delivering protein for muscle repair and morale amid the grind of conquest. Pork reigned supreme in official rations, and for compelling reasons, pigs multiplied swiftly, devoured scraps with unpretentious gusto and yielded fatty, calorie-rich meat that packed a punch in harsh conditions. Yet fresh cuts were a logistical nightmare on the march, spoiling swiftly without refrigeration. Enter Roman pragmatism. Soldiers received pork preserved as salted bacon or lardum, smoked to perfection, enduring weeks or months in transit without turning foul. A hearty chunk tossed into a cauldron of Puls transformed bland porridge into a savory symphony, infusing flavor and fortitude. Beef, goat, and mutton rounded out the menu, especially in cattle-rich regions like Gaul, where herds trailed the army as living rations, slaughtered fresh when needed, their hides repurposed for gear. Historical anecdotes abound. Julius Caesar's Gallic war commentaries detail how his legions, during the brutal siege of Alesia in 52 BC, relied on such mobile herds while encircling Vercingetorix, even as their own encirclement by Gallic reinforcements forced desperate rationing. But the true thrill, the spark of adventure amid monotony, came from hunting. The legionnaire wasn't just a slayer of foes, but a cunning predator of the wilds. During brief halts or extended encampments, they fanned out with slings, bows, or snares, pursuing deer thundering through forests, wild boars charging with tusks bared, hares darting like shadows, or birds wheeling overhead. Everything edible found its way to the pot, diversifying diets while sharpening combat skills, tracking, stealth, and precision strikes, mirroring battlefield tactics. The right to hunt was a cherished privilege, boosting spirits and supplementing meager rations. Fishing added variety. Rivers and lakes yielded slippery prizes with nets or lines, a popular diversion that turned downtime into bounty. Coastal garrisons indulged in exotic fare, oysters and mussels pried from rocky shores, edible snails sometimes farmed in enclosures, even frogs croaking in marshy fringes. Archaeological digs at forts like Masada reveal mollusk shells and fish bones, whispering of soldiers far from home, grasping any protein to stave off the gnawing void. For a legionary posted thousands of miles from Italy's olive groves, These foraged feasts were lifelines, blending necessity with the raw thrill of survival. Imagine the camaraderie, a contubernium huddled around a spit-roasted boar, flames licking the night sky, laughter mingling with the sizzle of fat, forging unbreakable bonds in the face of war's brutality. This wasn't indulgence or gluttony. It was calculated pragmatism, merging centralized Annona supplies with opportunistic soldier savvy to maintain health and fighting edge. Livy's histories recount how Scipio Africanus, during the Second Punic War, encouraged such foraging to keep his troops resilient against Hannibal's scorched earth tactics. Yet no feast felt complete without the verdant allies that warded off invisible foes. How did greens weave into this marching tapestry? The unsung heroes of health await, their ingenuity ready to astonish. Don't dismiss the greens as mere garnish. Rome's shrewd commanders intuitively grasped their power, weaving vegetables and forage into the diet to shield legions from disease's stealthy assault and preserve peak fighting form. While not as rigidly standardized as grain, these green rations played a pivotal role, preventing the horrors of scurvy and malnutrition that could cripple an army as surely as a routed flank. Staples like onions and garlic, allium in Latin, led the charge, rationed for their sharp, enlivening flavor that pierced through unleavened monotony and their potent antiseptic properties. Romans revered garlic as a bestower of strength, a ward against ailments. Every soldier pocketed several heads, crunching them raw or infusing meals to fend off infections lurking in camp latrines or battlefield wounds. Other essentials included hardy cabbage, turnips, carrots, and legumes, dried lentils, peas, and beans that stored eternally, bulking up porridges with fiber and plant-based protein. In a world without modern vitamins, these were quiet guardians, their nutrients averting the gum-bleeding agony of scurvy that plagued less prepared forces, like Hannibal's men, as noted by Polybius. But most produce defied central supply chains, perishing too swiftly for long hauls. Instead, legions turned local. In long-term camps, soldiers tilled vegetable gardens around fortifications, sowing leafy greens, lettuce, cucumbers, and herbs in spare moments, a form of therapeutic respite amid war's relentless toll. Hands that wielded swords now nurturing life from soil. Foraging was the true art, a vital skill honed from rural roots. Most legionaries hailed from countryside farms, their eyes sharp for edible treasures in alien terrains. They plucked wild nettles stinging like barbs, tangy sorrel, roots burrowed deep, berries bursting with sweetness, and mushrooms hidden in damp shadows, transforming hostile landscapes into bountiful pantries. Fruits amplified the arsenal. In southern provinces, dried figs, grapes, and dates endured journeys, offering quick energy surges like nature's power bars. Northward, wild apples, pears, and plums foraged from orchards provided similar boosts. This hybrid system, centralized durables fused with opportunistic gathering, rendered the diet remarkably flexible and balanced for antiquity's rigors. Onions, garlic, and cabbage transcended food, serving as preventive medicine against avidominosis, their humble presence a testament to Roman foresight. Picture a weary centurion, miles from home in foggy Britain, munching a garlic clove to bolster his resolve, human resilience shining through the empire's pragmatic veil. Such empathy humanized the machine, reminding us that behind the helmets were men battling not just foes, but the body's frailties. Yet even the most nutritious fare could torment the soul if flavorless. That's where Rome's culinary trinity entered, alchemizing drudgery into delight. Bland sustenance could shatter spirits faster than a broken shield wall, so the Romans, ever the masters of morale, equipped their soldiers with a potent flavor arsenal: salt, olive oil, and garum, the sacred trinity that elevated simple rations from endurance tests to edible triumphs. These weren't frivolous add-ons, but essential pillars of Roman cooking, as vital as the main courses in turning porridge into a meal worth savoring. Salt, or sal, stood foremost, a strategic powerhouse in a pre-refrigeration world. Not merely a condiment, but the ultimate preservative, locking freshness into meats and veggies against time's decay. Its flavor magic was profound, coaxing appetite from the weariest palate, making every bite more inviting. So crucial was salt that it wove into the fabric of economy and language. The word salary traces to salarium, the salt allowance or money for salt in a soldier's pay, as Pliny the Elder attests in his Natural History. underscoring how this crystal guarded health and zest. Next, olive oil. The Mediterranean's liquid gold flowed as everything: calorie booster, cosmetic balm, lamp fuel, and healing unguent. Soldiers drew regular rations, drizzling it into chowders for richness, frying scraps for crisp delight, or rubbing it onto sun-blistered skin for protection against wind and glare. Good quality oil signaled superior supply lines, a mark of logistical prowess. But the crowning enigma? Garum, or liquamen, a fermented fish sauce that to Romans was as indispensable as ketchup or soy sauce to us. Pungent, umami-packed, and utterly transformative. Its shocking creation: small fish, guts and blood salted and sun-fermented for months in vats, yielding a salty, spicy elixir brimming with proteins, amino acids, and minerals. The odor? Overpowering, wild to modern noses, yet to ancients it evoked home's hearth. Just droplets unleashed the fifth taste umami, turning unleavened slop into a rich, layered dish that tantalized senses and nourished bodies. Produced on industrial scales across the empire, from Spain's factories to Asia Minor's shores, garum shipped in sealed amphorae, a staple for far-flung troops. For a legionary shivering in damp Britain, a spoonful stirred into hot Puls wasn't mere seasoning. It was a sun-drenched whisper of the Mediterranean, evoking olive groves and azure seas. This trio, salt for preservation and punch, oil for versatility and calories, garum for depth and health, was no luxury. It waged psychological warfare, sustaining motivation through flavor's subtle power. Trajan's column reliefs depict such provisions in action, soldiers distributing amphorae amid campaigns. Now peel back the layers. How did Rome orchestrate this symphony on colossal scales from granary to battlefield? The logistics unveil the empire's crowning genius, a web of roads, warehouses, and resolve that fed victory itself. Behind every savory bite and sustained march pulsed Rome's logistical masterpiece, a symphony of planning, infrastructure, and adaptability that ensured no legion ever starved, turning potential weakness into unassailable strength. This wasn't mere happenstance, but one of antiquity's most sophisticated military supply systems, as much a weapon as the legions themselves, allowing operations where lesser armies withered. At its core sprawled the famous Roman roads, Via Appia and beyond, engineered primarily for troops but doubling as arteries for sustenance. Caravans of wagons groaning under grain sacks, rumbling uninterrupted across continents. Networks of military warehouses, horea, dotted borders in key provinces, stockpiling grain, wine, oil, and salted meats for months ahead. A legion on campaign could replenish at these bastions, as Caesar did during his Gallic forays. Supplies flowed through multifaceted channels. Centralized shipments from Italy and breadbasket provinces sailed seas and rivers, then trundled roads under watchful eyes of officials and intendants. Local procurement stimulated conquered economies, armies buying from villagers, though harsher requisitions seized goods in wartime, breeding resentment but solving crises swiftly. Each legion trailed a massive convoy, hundreds of mules and wagons hauling not just siege engines and tents, but provisions. Yet Romans wisely limited this to avoid sluggishness. Instead, soldiers bore significant loads themselves, Marian mules post-107 BC reforms, each carrying grain or biscuits for days, hand mills, kettles, and flasks in sarcina packs, enabling rapid detachments from the main train. Trajan's column immortalizes this: soldiers laden with tools and rations, self-sufficient juggernauts marching light and lethal. The system fused centralized oversight with personal accountability, as Vegetius extols in his military treatise, crediting it for Rome's invincibility. Cooking mirrored this organization. Based on the Contubernium, 8 men as kitchen cell, grinding, boiling in bronze cauldrons, roasting on spits, their mule carting gear. Evenings transformed camps into communal hearths, one chopping wood, another tending flames, a third stirring, meals forging family from strangers. Personal kits, vasa, included versatile pottery bowls for heating or eating, simple mugs and spoons, no forks, just hands and utility. Archaeologists unearthed these etched with owners' names from Hadrian's Wall to the Euphrates, echoes of fireside repasts. Feasts punctuated the grind. Religious festivals like Saturnalia or emperor birthdays brought upgrades. Fine wine over Posca, sacrificial meats, better bread, binding men to the imperial fold. Victories sparked grand banquets, commanders
Almost
like
ready,
Trajan
Commander.
distributing provisions in gratitude as bas-reliefs show. Rewards included extra wine or cheese for valor, simple yet potent motivators. Even at frontiers, Vindolanda letters list luxuries like pepper or honey, officers diversifying tables. But commanders varied. Generous ones nurtured loyalty. Stingy tyrants hoarded, breeding mutiny. The system's flaw: vulnerability in sieges or wilderness. Chains broke under miscalculation, like Mark Antony's Parthian debacle in 36
Take
BC,
that grain.
where Plutarch describes starving troops devouring comrades in desperation. More common: slashed rations, frantic foraging, roots, herbs, berries, acorns, rivers scoured for fish, frogs, crayfish, transport animals slaughtered first, mules and oxen yielding tough meat, then horses, a dire sign. Caesar at Alesia recounts legionaries risking lives for field grains. Extremes birthed horrors: boiled leather from sandals, belts, shields, tree bark scraped for broth. Rare cannibalism as taboo shattered. These grim tales, from Numantia's siege to Vetera's holdout, underscore the harsh reality beneath Roman splendor. Legionaries trained not just to conquer, but to endure inhumanity. Yet this adaptability was their final arsenal, turning desperation into defiance. The Roman soldier's diet emerged as a marvel of military engineering and unyielding pragmatism, not mere nourishment, but a meticulously calibrated system engineered to amplify a vast army's combat prowess under any duress. Caloric, portable, and balanced as antiquity allowed, it mirrored Rome's essence: organization amid chaos, efficiency over extravagance.
Look at this.
We've journeyed through grain's foundational might,
Yes.
morphing
Food
from
is
hearty
almost
Puls
ready.
porridge to stone-hard
I can't wait to
Bucellatum
eat.
biscuits. Discovered Posca's sour salvation, a safe, refreshing lifeline against thirst and plague. Witnessed meat's protein punch from salted pork to hunted game. Green's health-guarding vigilance via foraged herbs in camp gardens. And the flavor trinity: salt, oil, garum, infusing morale into every bite. Lurking behind,
And then he
a
said,
logistical titan
"I
of
have to
roads,
find a way to
granaries,
make
and
it all
self-reliance that propelled victories, even as breakdowns unveiled brutal resilience in roots, hides, and rare taboos. This wasn't culinary artistry, but raw efficacy. Every calorie a calculated strike, every product a purposeful tool. As we peer into the soldier's cauldron, we grasp how the empire rose not
These grains
solely
are
on
looking
swords, but on
excellent.
bread,
Indeed.
pragmatism,
Our diligence
adaptability,
truly pays
and
off.
discipline, forging an eternal legacy that humbles us today. Echoes resound in modern militaries, MREs mirroring Bucellatum, supply chains aping Roman roads, efficiency still winning wars. Reflect on this. Could you endure on vinegar, swigs, and rock biscuits, grinding grain by firelight while empires clash? Rome's ingenuity whispers yes if forged in their iron mold. It humanizes the conquerors, revealing compassionate threads in their brutal tapestry. If this immersion into the marching cauldron has shocked your senses and ignited awe for the eternal Rome, hit that like button, subscribe for more hidden truths from history's greatest empire, and drop a comment. What Roman ration would you brave on a modern hike? Countless astonishing stories await beyond the textbooks. Join the
For a
Legion
Roman
and march
soldier,
onward.
Diet was not just about survival. It was about strength and endurance.